feel like if you made that much money in a year, you might do other things. But then again, if StarCraft is your passion, now you have the money to do it. Oh, okay, maybe not.
It goes both ways.
They'd be playing from freaking like Hawaii or some like amazing beach, right? And their background would always be amazing. That's what it would be.
I think it would even be one step further, and we would have we'd have millions of people playing StarCraft 2, you know? Like the latter,
yeah.
They need to build new servers. It would be amazing. NA would still get shafted on servers, but it'd be fine because there'd be so many people playing. It'd be amazing. As we have spawning down in the bottom left of Data C for Kites Gaming, it is Solar.
In the top right for Onside Gaming, it is the purple Terran Maru.
And we've got something pretty cool coming up about this match. This is, well, it's cool for a couple of reasons. One is a little bit of a sad reason. It's an elimination match. But this is to determine who is the 9th player to qualify for the offline event, Maru or Solar, and make it into that best of 5 stage of the tournament. Things get very different there. We talked about this a little bit in the pregame. Bad luck Brian Solar seems to always run into Maru. It feels like running into max packs in PvP or something, but it's Maru, so it's like worse, you know? Like it's just such a devastating thing to have during your bracket run.
Yeah. It doesn't feel good. But there maybe is a sliver of hope in that when people first looked at the TSL bracket, a lot of people, all right, not just like 2 or 3 people, decent amount of people, jokingly but also not jokingly, said that Maru was going to get right to the finals. That he had one of the nicer brackets. And yet here he is, having so far had to play with the lower bracket far more in advance at all than people expected, even more in advance than people expected. So maybe he's not playing to the most, optimal Maru that we know. That is the only glimmer of hope that I can really give Solar, because otherwise, Maru is kind of doing almost like what we said Cyril does sometimes, which is that he does take the beating once, and then he just comes back stronger. The Saiyan, I believe. You also put that way for Raynor, I think. So something like that. I'd say for Maru, more of just the... Can't say that he gets angry, because I don't think he does. But the cold-blooded murder, thinks about it long and hard, and he just realizes how he's going to brutally murder someone. So that happened in his last TDZ series, where I think Ragnarok was supposed to have something to say about it, and then ultimately had nothing to say about the series.
Yeah. You do have to go back to, of course, Rattata took a map off of Maru, and Showtime beat Maru. But like you said, it feels like there's maybe this extra gear you get to when you're on the chopping block, when you're in the elimination setup. You just have a little bit more focus, a little bit more drive and desire. But we got to talk about this game a little bit, because we've got a very strange little push out coming out of Maru. He did open up with the reactor first, and now he's doing a 4 marine pressure across the map. And behind this, it's a Widow Mine drop?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, that's exactly what it is. Well, I gotta say, this would have been cutting it real close if this was one of the faster speed timings, but it is not, so... But I think Maru was mindful of it anyways, so the Marines literally just, poked forward and then ran back. Their goal was really not to do anything on that third base. Maybe it would have been quite nice to find 2 drones there or something like that, but I think they were looking more so for Overlords, and then were ready to skedaddle, or properly protected by the Hellions. Which there's only 2 right now, but even then that would have helped against 4 or 6 Lings. Now Solar needs a few more. Now that speed's done, now that something else must be on the way, and it is going to be a Widow Mine drop, which the Overlord scouts, he's going to need something more than that. And it's going to be an armory as well, so these are going to have cloak. It is going to be annoying for Solar to clean up, but it doesn't mean that it's going to do a whole lot of damage. And then Maru, I was waiting for this, is going to go into a 2-base push, since he was so fond of them versus Ragnarok. I wonder if he was going to continue that trend. Yeah,
and oh wow, Solar, he is very in position for this drop. He's got the Spore Crawler there, he's got the Queens. He already gets the medevac down to about half HP. Of course, he can... whole lot of... He can transform those Hellions into Hellbats, but you don't want to do that with the Lings right on top of them. Widow Mines are going to try and burrow on up. He will deny one of them, but he's going to be able to pull his drones away. It loses a Queen. Oh! What? Solar, why?
Yeah, that was not the best. I do feel like that was just one... Like, usually the order of operations is correct in these pros' minds because they've handled situations a billion times over. It really is just almost instinctual. But that was one of those times you're like, wait a minute, nope, okay, exactly, I guess what you were doing with casting. Hold on. So that is unfortunate because that really could have been almost perfect. I think the queen loss was also imperfect, really, but... That plus the Ling kind of stings, plus the Widow Might.
Yeah.
Two of them get out with the Medivac still alive. That also stings. But what's sting the most is if during all of this and the tiny mistakes that Solar is making, he is not mindful of the follow-up, which is also, I think, something that happened to Ragnarok. He was so preoccupied with handling the opener, which he did well, by the way, that he didn't see there was a 2-base attack.
Yeah, and there is a really decent chance that that's what's going to be happening because we've got more drones coming on down. He's getting a layer. He's getting a Baneling nest. He's getting 1-1 upgrades. He's adding on more gases. I'm pretty scared right now for Solar. He is very far down in army supply. I don't know how he can hold this.
I'm not sure that he can, dude. Literally no Baneling nest, so absolutely no Baneling speed. Well, the layer's not even done, but droning until the very last second. Hellbats included with this push. It is a bit more blitzy, right? It's not the tank push, but the blitz, I think, is going to work. Gonna get this hatchery first and foremost, then even with the Banelings forming, a little bit of a Hellbat split, pulling back the Marines, picking those up, maybe heading into the main base afterwards. The chaos will continue.
The beatings will continue until morale improves. And this was all before the big power spike from Maru. This was before combat shields and +1 weapons. He basically just gets a free kill on the third base before the fight breaks out in earnest. And Bane speed isn't even started. It's not going to be here for a long time. Widow Mines could be highly impactful. Banelings? Okay, nope, not going to go for fight just yet. The Hellbats are going to tank extraordinarily well against this. And Maru doing something very interesting because he's got the armor. He goes straight up into +2 attack and is going to purposely lag behind with his +2 or +1 armor. I like this decision a lot, actually, going for the attack upgrade first.
I do as well, actually. It's certainly not something we usually see, but then we also don't usually see the opener that was chosen here from Maru. The Widowmine drop armory into 2-base attack is certainly a spin on what is, sometimes used, which is like kind of a more typical 2-base. So it's a cool addition. Now he gets +2 attack very quickly. But the game might be over by then if he actually handles this absolutely correctly. But ooh, Solar throwing a wrench into things, getting a huge Ling run by into the natural, into the main base he goes. And this is most devastating, not because of the SCVs, which is also devastating, but because it is going to completely divert Maru's attention. If he handles this, plus handles the front lines perfectly, well, that would be a Maru moment, wouldn't it? And he certainly helped out by a really nice Widowmine hit.
That was a massive hit right there. We are going to see another Widowmine coming back off cooldown and gets a decent shot just as it goes down. Maru getting incredible damage done, and Solar, that was a great counterattack. He knocked out 15 SCVs in a standard even game. That's amazing. But Maru already had his foot on the gas, and as you said, he handled the aggressive side of the fight very well. Picks up into the medevacs. He's going to be able to save all of these Marines, except for the one that apparently has a death wish, but it's going to be fine anyways.
It's good.
Yeah, I feel like the timer is ticking on Solar, and I really don't know how you wiggle your way out of this.
Even though he seems to be holding, and the run-by was very good, there are so many things that are missing from a typical Zerg's defensive stance, primarily one of those things being creep spread, right? Maru has been insistent on aggression on Solar's side of the map since the very get-go, since literally 4 Marines ran their way across the map and did, almost nothing, but opened up the way to everything else that has happened since then. So Solar is absolutely going to struggle to hold on to this. He really needs, basically, his own equivalent to a mine hit, which would be a really, really good Baneling hit. But so far, Maru is denying him that, now adding Marauders to the front line, so 1 or 2 Baneling hits will no longer change the course of the battle all that much, I would say. Unless, again, Maru just puts his Marines on the front line, which he should not be doing. Maru is at least forced to disengage for a little while. Solar did get back up to 4 bases. Kudos to that, well, under all of this pressure. And he is going to finish up 2-2. So, even though he's missing something that is still a powerful, important ingredient to Zerg play, creep spread, he is refusing to die.
And Maru didn't build SCVs for quite a long time. He was at 46 SCVs for about a minute and a half. But he's going to take down this base. The Marauders that were barely picked up towards the end on super low HP now find themselves back healed up and able to take down that base. And they're just going to rotate on over. This is still Maru firmly in command of this game. But like you said, Solar is refusing to die. And Maru hasn't started up 3-2 upgrades. Hasn't even started up his +2 armor. I'm not counting Solar out just yet, even though he's in a really tough position.
You know, it is interesting, and we've seen this before. I think Gumiho did it. I'm definitely sure that Maru's done it before, too. But worth noting is the amount of Marauders, actually. So usually you would see something like this maybe against a Roche player, but even sometimes some Terran players don't. But 3 Marauders at a time versus Ling, Baneling, Hydra. Very early on, a low economy the entire time as well. It does provide a lot of chunk to the army. I love using that word, so that's what I'm going to continue doing. But it also gives you kind of less to utilize on a technical level, right? Like literally less units to utilize. And we know how, I guess, high the skill cap is for pure Marine when properly controlled, like perfectly controlled. So I do like the decision, right? The decision coming out of these Terran players, I think, is interesting to note, some adaptation to TVZ. And it's also funny it's coming out from the guy that I think right now is kind of getting the negative press about being the late game turtle player. Maru is really trying to almost disprove that in his lower bracket run of TSL.
And this is the sign of a great player, too, is the ability to play so many different styles and at the same time. Gets a couple of Baneling pickoffs right here. I think as much as anything, he's just looking to trade efficiently with this army and clip back creep. The funny part is there was no creep to clip back there, so he just kind of walks away and is like, okay, that's fine. Something else, another player that I think of that loved heavy Marauder play much earlier than many other Terrans in this matchup was Polt. Polt was always a huge fan of Marauders at very early timings in this matchup, and he was very good at setting up, you know, pre-splits with the army. It really simplifies things in terms of the micro. You stim everything, and then you just control-click the Marines and pull them back while the Marauders laugh and laugh and laugh as it takes 7 to 8 to 9 Banelings to kill them.
Yeah, I mean, that is true, but I also think this, to put it even broader sense, because I don't think it was necessarily Polt who was the only one choosing this. I do think it's almost a meta cycle where there were times in StarCraft 2's history where it was mostly bio, and we are seeing this once again. So yes, there has been factory units on the field producing 2 Wood Mines at a time. We don't see that usual addition of a second factory fairly quickly. So again, there's like the weird things that happen with this particular opener from start to finish that kind of add to that, but then again, a decision not to go into that second factory, and in fact, often omitting factory production in exchange for perfect bio production. So it is, you know, it actually goes back to even like a Bomber 2011 situation, Marine King Prime, and then absolutely Polt, I think sometimes in Heart of the Swarm, I remember being taught by him for this like little CSN thing that I did, and that was also very in the meta at the time. But yeah, it kind of comes and goes, right? But even with a little bit less factory production, we are still talking about a decent number of Wood Mines for sure. And again, that lack of creep spread, Maru just barreling in right now.
Yeah, he certainly is. Now, we are seeing a good spread of Ling Bane here coming in from Solar, and he's doing a good job of making sure he never takes a big mine hit. And, wow, actually mitigated those extraordinarily well. But the drop in the main base, and now 3-2 is going to finish. The Hydra Den's going to go down. The Hive is not yet completed, and Solar, he's got to find a way to clean this up very cost efficiently, or he's going to be in a tough spot, and Maru just says, nope, I'm not going to let you clean it up. I'm just going to pick up, get on out of here. And he's got another army that's almost the same size, ready to go on the bottom side. That's the strength of this pure bio setup.
Again, I want to take a moment just to commend Solar. It feels like this would usually be too much pressure for a Zerg player when they're missing out on some other key ingredients. Really, the last time that he had a bit of favoritism was that Ling run by. That was the only time it really felt that he had some control over the matchup, but he's still holding on. So again, the creep spread, and then the constant pressure, which maybe makes you go too far into the army, not enough into the drones, not enough into the technology. He is living on 5 bases, going up the Vipers, trying to get to that Lurker Den, and this is all while being attacked basically non-stop. So I think Solar, on one of his worst days in the past couple of months, I think he would have already crumbled. This is a rather good Solar, It truly makes me happy for the entire series. I think that is something that we question kind of coming back into it. We sometimes mention that he's had luck Brian. We should definitely make that a meme. But I think he is, I don't know. This would just be, if he had tapped out 5-6 minutes ago, I'd been like, yeah, that's Maru and his relentless pressure. All right, fair enough. But he is trying to hold on. He is once again looking to defend. Oh, just barely. The base, while also dealing with the drop in the main and getting to those lurkers. He's so damn close to it, up so much for drawing a line in the sand in some of these locations, but he might just not be able to get there.
And this has been all without creep. This has been without great upgrades. You really said it best. Solar's doing a phenomenal job in a very difficult position, but it feels like Maru is more comfortable. That being said, we do see the medevac going down in the main base. Nice little split off against this Widowmine once again, and Solar loses the hatch again. But he does have a 4th base that he can fall back to. Maru is also on 4 bases, though, and even though Maru's not advancing his tech any further, which is going to be a problem in the next little bit if he doesn't, choose to advance it and Vipers hit the field, Lurkers hit the field. For now, this is still totally fine for Maru, and he's got his foot on the gas pedal.
Yeah. Maybe Solar takes a bit of a supply lead. So while Maru still has an incredible amount of units to produce and spill forward with how he's chosen to play this. Oh, and another base goes down, actually. Ooh, okay. Solar is, again, he has the supply lead, which is kind of shocking for the game. He has the technology, and he just got another run by in. So finally saying something in this game rather than just I'm defending, which maybe doesn't get the biggest of deals there. 9 SCVs plus the command center has to be repaired. I think momentum-wise is an absolutely huge deal. Things are actually starting to swing a little bit in Solar's favor as Maru entirely retreats to his side of the map.
He certainly does, and he pulls his natural command center over to try and take a 5th base. So it's a quote-unquote 5th base. It's not really a real 5th base. Obviously, you're still able to mine from it, but it means you don't have extra mules. You don't have a planetary there, which is a big deal, which means you don't have as much influence or control over that side of the map. And now that lurkers are out, I'm really starting to believe more and more that Solar can do something here. I think you said it best. This felt like a lost game from about 10 minutes ago. But Solar is really starting to show up, and now he's going to find a Ling run by on the top side. The Changeling seeing that there is, in fact, nothing there. No, Lings, go, go. Okay, thank you. Please, jeez.
There was a little bit of time, but the army was returning home, so that probably could have been much worse for SCD. It's not really what he was hoping for. Yeah, it's impressive from both sides. I really enjoy the style of play from the Terran, but I really wish that there is a world where we could perfectly just take this game and then plop it into a Marine tank game, which is, you just can't. You can't. Even if you got the 2 players to play from replay at 7 minutes and said, okay, no, go tanks and Marines, it still wouldn't be exactly the same. But I really wish that we could see it and how that would have played out differently. Imagine, again, if it could have happened 4 tanks up around that 4th base of Solar when he had 0 creep spread.
Yeah.
Including, above where the tanks would be siege. So he wouldn't even get that much of a surround, right? That would have been brutal. But there are, merits and downsides to both things. But, yeah, I would love to have been able to instantly contrast and compare.
Yes. We are going to be seeing the army of Maru. Oh, big stam, and he actually doesn't have that many medevacs. He's got to be a little bit mindful with that. Still Marauders on the front to tank for now, and a parasitic bomb. Funny because it's such low value, but if he can get the kill on all 3 medevacs, it becomes incredibly high value. Just, no medevacs left with this army, and in fact, the fact that they're all low on energy is a really big problem. What I would really love to see out of Solar, toss. Oh, okay, well, this actually works very well as well. He's going to find some big damage with those lurkers. He's going to try and move forward on the bottom side, but some great target fire from Maru will take down the advanced 2 lurkers. Parasitic Bomb going to take down another medevac, and now there's just 1 medevac and a very overstimmed army. What I would like to see, though, out of Solar, put 4 lurkers or even 3 lurkers, because, it's so tough to afford them, but you need a Hail Mary play at this point. Put them in the middle of the map on hold fire. And because Maru has rotated his entire army through the middle of the map 4 times now. And I feel like that would be, first of all, that would be the equivalent of Solar nuking Maru, which would literally uncurse him. But second of all, it would win him the game.
This is some, like...
This is some, like, voodoo stuff, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I was gonna go with, like, Halloween shit, but, exactly. He's gonna be uncursed if he can get the equivalent of a Zerg nuke on top of Maru all of these last 2 years, I guess, since that was, what, 2021 Katowice? So a year and a half, basically, would be all undone. But it's not the case yet. I think that could have been a brilliant move, but there's basically two problems, right? Yeah, getting to enough lurkers while also keeping yourself alive, and then also getting to that position without being noticed. Because Maru has, for about 70% of this game, been the one controlling the map, for sure. Where 30% is kind of these run-bys doing something, and maybe a little bit of okay-ish creep spread in the middle. Very much okay-ish. Maybe even Silk 4. It's not something that's always been able to do under all this pressure. So getting lurkers out into a position actually like this, which Maru could very well go over, was tough. But now that it's even farther to reach into Solar's, for instance, third base, I mean, either Maru just doesn't bother going there, which unfortunately is the choice, or he does try to dive, and that would have been awesome, but he just moves away.
Yeah, and is there any way for us to know if they're on hold fire? I can't. I don't think
so.
there's a visual indicator. I know that there's, like, you can see it on your own UI, but I don't think. Oh, wow! He actually gets both medevacs that are fully loaded, and this is starting to look very problematic actually for Maru. Looks like those lurkers on the bottom side do get pulled back as he sees the entire army, kind of. Well, showing up at that base, but I'm starting to get very worried for Maru. Solar has fought such a brilliant game, and it has been such a scrappy and chaotic game. And now this lurker, oh my god, the SCVs, they're so stacked up! Oh! It's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I think it could have been so much worse. Another hatchery is going to fall. Now I think we can bring up Pult again with these snipes and runaways on the hatcheries. But Solar, it's an amazing game, truly, because at some points, again, 70% of the game, I'm still going to say that, has been Maru kind of controlling the map, but it does start to even maybe decrease a little bit as we continue on to an almost 23-minute game, where Solar does start to have a little bit more to say on the map, a little bit more of the run-bys, a little bit more of the army actually positioning itself aggressively to Maru's bases. But then there's also times where it seems like Maru has taken full control, has the supply lead, has taken out Solar's bases, and it seems like, okay, it's a matter of time, right? But then you look at the supply, you look at the composition, and Solar has gotten to a healthy number of lurkers with their upgrades, and once again, with a supply lead. Yes, that is all in workers right now, but still very good army with it, and it just... It doesn't seem like that's supposed to be the way this played out. Solar has done an undeniably good job. Maru has played also a fantastic game. He has managed to finally fit in Ghost, by the way, which I think has been very difficult for him as he tried to end this game with almost pure bio, while also barely getting his expansions up. Some of these orbitals, right, very difficult to hold, and yet he has managed to just barely scrap by and get to Ghost, so he has a proper response to the lurkers.
Very cute little move right there from Maru, by the way, which Solar recognized instantly, but it did push his entire army back. He sniped the Overseers and sent the entire army getting chased away, and that opens up the attack on the top side. We are going to see the Viper getting taken down right there. That's pretty expensive for Solar. Both players are on an absolute shoestring budget right now, and with Solar losing another base, things get worse and worse and worse for him.
Dude. This is such a great TVZ. I love that it's not turtley, right? It's all action all the time. We had a pretty nice game number 2 with Lambo in time, and that was awesome. But even then, a lot of that was you guys talking about how it would be almost impossible for Lambo to bring it back. And, well, he almost did, and that was really cool. Now we get this constant action game. Back and forth we go. Once again, Solar able to get on Maru's side of the map, but there is the concave of Ghost, so there is a little bit of a defense. That is never the only Ghost Academy, however, so hopefully Maru is able to rebuild that, and he does lose it, but he's also starting to push. Number of lurkers is awfully low, but the Hydra's starting to cover them a little bit, take down the orbital, and Maru was a little bit shy to try and chase after. The Ghost mostly down on energy. The rest of the army only just joining up for Maru. So many lurkers, though. I'm really afraid for Solar.
Yeah, this is... Oh, man. This feels like one big fight will absolutely determine the game. At this point, it feels as though Maru has re-secured that advantage that he had so long ago that Solar fought so hard against. But if we see a big flank on this army... never mind. We're going to say there's nothing really on the bottom side. And it's actually going to be Maru coming... Well, Yeah, coming from a couple of angles with some reinforcements. Solar's going to try and pick the fight, but the snipes are going to be devastating. And with that, GG will get called. What a phenomenal game between both players. Solar, he showed some incredible resilience.
Yes, absolutely. Up until the very end, I guess at the end of the day, the attack into the third base, the attack on the orbital that did eventually die was still not worth the amount of lurkers that were killed, and thus the amount of confidence I think that Maru got to actually move across the map. But that looked like an opening. It really did. It was so razor thin for so many parts of that game. You know, they were all within, I feel like, constantly 20 supply of each other. So occasionally it was Solar's, occasionally it was Maru's, but nevertheless, like, it always came down to who was controlling better, who was in position better. And at the end of the day, Maru does manage to win it out. But that was all off the back of a really tough opening scenario for Solar.
Yeah, that was him being under incredible duress for what felt like the entire game, really. Obviously, he mishandled the Widowmine drop a little bit. Things didn't go quite perfectly for him, but it still wasn't too bad. The big problem was, of course, that follow-up push that got a free kill on the third base. It felt like Maru was never going to let him stabilize, but Solar just kept not dying. And he did such a good job of not dying for, 6, 7, 8 minutes straight and just sneaking out little bits of tech that he finally actually did find himself, I think, for a very short period of time before the ghost hit the field. I think he was actually in a lead for a very small period of time when he had lurkers, and I think they might have even had both upgrades. I think there was a very small period of time where you could have argued that Solar was in a lead there. Regardless, though, Maru says, okay, fine, you want to go late game? We'll go late game. And he just... he makes Solar regret having woken up in the morning.
Well, hopefully, again, Solar can take some solace somewhere. I threw out, Maru's in the lower bracket, so he's not like he's unbeatable. Well, I guess now he has to say, well, I almost kind of won that game, and I was under a lot of pressure, so just maybe. But that's certainly what you want to be doing in your last best of 3. Potentially saying, well, maybe. Solar really wants to get something really, I guess, confidence building to happen, and certainly a game 2 against this guy would be it. It is going to be a pool first from Solar in the bottom right of Moondance. Half intro.
And his opponent spawning up in the top left of Moondance. It's Maru for Onside Gaming. I like that Indy kind of matched the speed of the intro by kind of slowing down the camera movement. That was brilliant. That's what we call peak performance. That was top tier. And are we gonna get the pip on the Overlords? There it is. They were ready for it. They knew what I wanted. Perfect play out of our Mapu and Indy combo. The Observing Archon, if I may.
Ooh, there's something you don't hear very often. You also don't get more than one observer very often. Get back in your dungeon and work 14 hours. Kudos to TSL for putting in the, I guess, that background work. Well, first, 6 Lings on the way. So again, I was going to throw this out. This could be because Maru does still have, even though he hasn't really shown any early cheeses in this tournament, can do it, but then you can just make it into a 6 Ling attack. And if they go for... I mean, what are the options that can be really good against this, or for this, I should say? I think this opener can be pretty good. Let's watch Maru dance with his Marines. He even canceled one, I think, to fit in a refinery, so it's a little bit later. Well, I just instantly react, so it's fine. We'll get 2 Marines, and now we can dance.
This... Okay, I was going to say, he's going to have to pull a couple of SCVs if he doesn't want to get jumped on here, and he will pull the appropriate number. Excellent micro right there on that one SCV, but he's going to lose 2 additional SCVs. Damn. Okay, well, that's a pretty darn good scenario right here for Maru, I would say. Or, pardon me, for Solar. No, that's a terrible situation for Maru. Wow. 3 SCVs. Normally, we're used to this getting maybe 1, but usually it's just lost mining time. Really solid situation. Solar going to take a pretty late third hatchery behind this, but he's still going to be very happy with his situation. It looks like, yeah, he focused a little bit on a quicker ling speed here to make sure that if something weird from Maru comes in once again, he's got that ling speed early enough to punish it. Because the, early Marine push that we saw out of Maru in the last game hit such that it was assuming a 4-minute speed timing. And Solar, actually, this is going to be like a 4-minute speed timing anyway, so all I'm saying is...
Yeah. The point is he didn't go even further on that speed timing, I think, right?
Yeah.
It could have been third hatch and then into speed, and that would have been extremely late. So that wouldn't even been available for these Hellions came across the map, which would be extremely dangerous. But yeah, this has been a kind of interesting opener, just with Maru once again going into the Marines. He did go for Reactor first, right? So the typical alternative is going for a Reaper. Had he SCV scouted as well, which is something he was doing against Ragnarok. That also could have really put a damper in Solar's plans. But I think the expectations of these two Zergs are very, very different. So Maru does get kind of, a little surprised. He gets scouted. He gets a little bit of revenge by killing an Overlord. And now Solar can't tell from miles away where this medevac's coming in. Not that one Overlord would say everything anyways. And that's is just the start. It really is just the taste. Because Maru, he has been going for some 2-base builds. I'm sure he can go back into a battlecruiser build. He's going to go into the Widowmine Marine drop into the Raven with Stim. And I do believe it's going to go into a 2-base build as he tried to do versus Ragnarok again. There's a lot of similarities, as it is also the same map and the same spawn positions for Terran and Zerg.
That it is. And Moondance, short map, a lot of good tank spots. You can set up tanks kind of on the corner of the natural, and it can be very difficult to deal with. Attacking that from that low ground ramp as well, where the Hellions are kind of not from this side, but from the bottom, is tricky to deal with for the Zerg as well. I do want to say, with that initial Widowmine drop, very unfortunate for Maru. Oh, as he picks off a free Hellion, Solar does. Very unfortunate for Maru. The Widowmine went off on the eggs and did literally nothing. He got his Marines into a phenomenal position, which could have caused a lot of problems, but doesn't work out that way. Looks like it is going to be a third command center on location from Maru.
Yes.
So it's like a semi-2-base, I guess? Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Here's kind of the complication, right? Is that so... Addendum to my earlier comment. So Maru actually went for the Raven opener into 2-base. Really quite dedicated to all lane in the first game of Ragnarok, and that wasn't on Moondance. But he was prepped to do a similar thing on Moondance, and very much so, I believe, was going to 2-base dedicate. But then it was scouted, so he added a third CC. I do believe that was more of a reaction. This is obviously a game plan. But I think this game plan is still very tricky, because what happens that Solar might already be kind of wondering if this is similar to what he might have researched in the games of Maru beforehand. But it also is tricky because for a Zerg player who gets very limited scouting in these situations, they see a supply depot wall, they really can't tell if it's a 3CC or 5 barracks. I mean, he could have even played it up a little bit more by having only one engineer bay on the front and then hiding the second one.
Oh, yes.
That would have been, quite cool. But even if Solar is able to correctly identify, oh, it is 3CC, oh, it is 5 racks dedication, because it's in between, he could still be in between on the reaction, which we know is quite deadly for a Zerg player. They're not building enough army or enough drones or doing one over the other when they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and that's, like you said, that's deadly. Zerg is all about balancing. It's all about balancing your economy, balancing your production. You have to make sure that you're doing the right things. Now, there is a little bit of room for error, but against a player like Maru, it's a small margin of error. You really can't make many mistakes at all. We're going to see this attack starting to form up on the right side. Bane speed is not done for a long time. 1-1 will be done actually a little bit quicker for Solar, which is rather unexpected. He's going to try and wrap around on this, but he can't let this hatchery get too low. It is getting very low, and it is going to go down before the fight breaks out.
It goes down. Tanks do refire on top of the Banelings for this a couple of shots before they die, and it looks like the Raven can even be saved here. So Maru, it's actually kind of weird. I mean, if a hatchery kill and 2 medevacs living and a Raven again, it might seem like it's okay, but I do wonder in the grand scheme of things if it is. Because Solar is going up to his 4th base, or what was his 5th, I want to say, at an okay time to make this into a bit of a double expand, so his drones really might not have suboptimal mining for very long. And then as you pointed out, he was very good about those upgrades, which he still is very good about, so moving on to 2-2 already. And creep spread also pretty good through the middle of the map, definitely need to be put down on the right side again after the clear up, but TLDR... I don't think that could have been so much worse, I guess, is really the TLDR. That could have been so much worse for Solar. And for Maru, well, he does get to play the rest of his game, clear up some of this creep spread, and continue aggressing on 3CC. But it is, you know, it's a little less supercharged than an actual 3rd CC, because in case you guys missed it, you added 2 more barracks as opposed to the 3rd CC as fast as possible. So there's a little bit of a takeaway there for Maru's build.
Also, something very interesting that Maru's done here is he's gone for an 8 racks before the 4th command center. He is adding on those tech labs, but he's going to find another kill on this base on the right side.
Okay.
God, that is... Solar did such a good job of defending in the previous game, and now mistiming his engagement a little bit in the... Like, in this game, around that base, so he lost it. Obviously, I understand, because he wanted to wait for 1-1, so can you really call it mistiming? I mean, yeah... Is it worth sacking the hatch? Honestly, probably, to make sure he gets better engagement. But then losing it on the 2nd time, that's substantially worse, and that's not okay.
Agreed. It was so quick. It was so snappy. Maru didn't sacrifice anything for it. I think that was the real gut punch.
Yeah.
It's like someone tried to punch you, and you're like, that wasn't too bad, and they punch you again. Like, oh, okay, no, punching really hurts. And maybe he's gonna get punched again! There's nothing defending this 3rd base. Or what is now, I guess, the 5th base, as he is willing to sacrifice it. Of course, just cancels. I think he was kind of ready for that, maybe even knowing he had no detection over there. And then Solar is just taking the safer back base, which is obviously an option for him, should he not be able to continue to expand out in the map. There is a tank helping this out a little bit, so Solar's gonna have to dedicate more banelings than perhaps he was hoping. But keep in mind, all of this happening while, again, Solar is grabbing a 5th just in the back, and he is already on Hive.
He certainly is. He starts up that Adrenal Glands as well and a couple of Vipers, but, I mean, this drop of the main base is going to get a little bit done. It's going to, yeah, it gets like a Hydra, not too much, but it will be able to bounce back and forth between these bases, and it's a small amount of supply that can occupy quite a bit of supply out of Solar. Now, once those Vipers pop out, they can abduct it, they can get the kill. But even then, that's, you know, wasted energy on the Vipers. That's a very value drop for now. But we do have to mention that it's actually Solar who has had the faster upgrades. Maru will finish up his 2-2 here, and the creep spread is pretty pushed back on this bottom side. Oh, anti-armor missile going to help out a lot for the initial part of this engagement. And once again, so many Marauders in the front. A little bit of a wraparound, causing some friendly fire on the Widow Mines right there. That was a pretty good engagement for Solar. That went quite well.
I'd say so. Once again, making sure to have more than one angle of attack, really critical to the Zerg's success. But it's kind of the same, I guess, for Maru, is very critical that you have more than one attack at any time as a Terran player, right? So he has an attack to the backside that got what is usually the safest base on any of the maps. Went ahead and took that out of the equation, and then was dropping on top of Solar's 4th base. I think I have to stop calling them by the order, because it doesn't make any sense. The 6 o'clock base, which is also going to be under attack once again. Solar is being spread apart a little bit too much, and Maru has chosen once again to go into this mass bio style. No second factory, no tanks that slow him down, right? It's just wave after wave of aggression, and things like being out of position are especially deadly. There really is no time wasted with what Maru is doing.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for Solar here, because in game number 1, when he was in an almost hopeless position, he had a near perfect, if not perfect, defense for about 10 minutes straight against this multi-prong. And now that he's in an even, if not good position against Maru, now is where he is faltering. This feels like the bad luck Brian in terms of where you put your strengths, you know? This feels this feels painful to watch. And now we're going to see another base going down on the right side. And there's not enough medevacs to save all this bio, but he's just going to be able to stim on out and get to the reinforcements, get through the chop up, and that'll save just about everything.
If Solar can get to lurkers once again, we can talk about more cost efficiency. After all these base snipes, right? It's not really made him the richest Zerg in the world. But he is struggling to do that, maybe even more so, yeah, in this game. starting to clean things up, starting to get back to a 5-base economy as he replaces his hatcheries about as quickly as he loses them, but he's also losing drones. So I want to say in this game, it's been maybe 30 drones that have died, just because it's been 9 and then 6 and then 4 and then 2 and then all in all. It's still something that takes away from Solar's real feeling of stability. I don't think he's ever feeling very stable. He's just desperately trying to keep up, which he so far is, but just like last game, could in 1 second all disappear. He could suddenly just not have enough banelings, not enough lings, not enough larvae, and then eventually not enough money.
Yeah, and it's already tricky to split your army. We are going to see an engagement breaking out here. Solar looking to come in from multiple angles. Does get a bit of a mind drag right there, and he's going to be able to take down most of the army. So that was a pretty solid engagement, and he should get this final medevac. He's got a couple of ducks, but here comes the multi-prong again from Maru, continuing to take down hatchery after hatchery. How many hatcheries have got? 6 hatcheries
Yeah.
have died in this game.
Yeah, man. This is, I feel like this is one of those games where you show someone from the past when it's Ling Baneling Muta all the time, like a Heart of the Swarm game, and they think the Zerg might be so dumb. They're like, of course they're gonna get dropped to death. Like, what are they doing? This is so stupid. But it obviously makes sense in the context of StarCraft as we know it. And it could have still worked if Solar had ever gotten more control over this game. One thing he has not ever done in this game compared to last are run-bys. When has Solar ever been on Maru's side of the map? Those 6 lings. Yeah, that's pretty much it. But yeah, had he gone for mutas, I do wonder how much of this could have changed. Mutas also can be surprisingly helpful against something like the Marauder block in the front. Those are what they pick off and then open up the floodgates for the Banelings. But again, similar to how I said last game, I'd love to see this just like compared immediately to a tank style. One day I'll love to see it compared to a muta style, but not today.
Yeah, and on a map like Moondance, it is not the comfiest map to go mutas on. We are going to see that Ling run by that you were asking for. And it will get into the back base. Going to be able to pick off at least a few SCVs, I assume. No SCVs going down on the game part there. There we go. Finally, a couple of them. Oh, they were on hold position. Okay, that makes sense. But an equal number of drones going down. Finally, we are going to see Solar cleaning up a drop on the bottom side without losing a base. But he loses 2 more hatcheries. As I was finishing the sentence, how many okay, 9 hatcheries. 9 hatcheries have died in this game. My God.
Crazy.
Leave the man alone.
Oh, boy. Yep. And again, I think a worse Zerg, Solar in a worse state, would have already crumbled minutes ago, but he has managed to at least amass somewhat of an army, kind of trying to tango a little bit, but very much so going to be unsuccessful when he's off of creep. Trying to make some room, I think, for the hatcheries to rebuild, for his lurker den to finish. But he is so far away from having effective lurkers, and now they want to be that effective since the ghosts are actually here. They're here, they're ready to go. There's Maru with a 40 supply lead, and an inevitable victory of game number 2. GG. Maru with a 2-0.